The first and most important part of this review will be being able to identify one of the four conic shapes. The ellipse will have two things that are squared, and they will have fractions. The bottom of the fractions must be different sizes, and in the end, it must be equal to 1. If it doesn't look like this, you have to make it look like this. For the hyperbola, they're both going to be squared, but they're going to be subtracted from each other. For best results, it should be equal to 1. A circle looks almost identical to an ellipse, except for both the fractions can be the same size. Usually we try to multiply them out to turn the 1 into r squared, r being the radius. For a parabola, one of them is going to be squared, the other one isn't. We're going to put everything that is not squared on one side, and the squared side is going to be divided by something, a 2a, though it does look a little bit like 42 there, but oh well. For problem 1, we notice that both the x's and the y's are squared, and there's a minus sign in between them. That means this is going to be a hyperbola. This means we're going to ignore all the other squares and just focus on if hyperbola. To find the center, we need to know what is being subtracted from the x and what's being subtracted from the y. In this case, 3 is being subtracted from the x, so 3, and -7 is being subtracted from the y. Remember, when you take it out of the parentheses, you change the signs. That's why -3 became 3 and +7 became -7. To find the foci, we need to find c. To do that, we're going to take the denominators from both fractions and add them together. 16 plus 1 is 17. That means c is going to be the square root of 17. Because +16 is bigger than -1, we are going to be manipulating the x's. Since we're manipulating the x's, that means the y stay the same. So I put -7 in for both y's. I said we're manipulating the x's, so 3 plus the square root of 17 and 3 minus the square root of 17. To graph it, I put the center at, well, the center, which is 3, -7. The number under the x is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. That means I'm going to go left and right 4. So I put 4 hash marks. The denominator for the y is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. And so I'm going to go up and down 1. Because it's hyperbola, I need to make a box. So I go to stretch the box 4 each side and 1 up and down. Then I make the diagonals through the box. Now I'm ready to graph. Because 16 was bigger than -1, we're going to go in the x directions. And the foci, which is square root of 17, which is bigger than square root of 16, 4, and smaller than the square root of 25, which is 5, I put the foci between 4 and 5 and wrapped the hyperbola around them. Problem 2. We notice the y is not squared. That means we're going to be dealing with a parabola. That means we focus on the parabola and nothing else. We do need to move stuff around so it looks more like the parabola formula. So I move the y over and the 1. So I add y to both sides and subtract 1 from both sides. To find the vertex, or what we call in all the others, the center, we're going to be looking at what's next to the x and what's next to the y. +5 is next to the x, so it becomes -5, and nothing is next to the y, so it becomes 0. According to the formula, the denominator underneath the square is what's going to tell us what a is. 4a equals whatever's on the bottom of the denominator, which in this case is 16. Divide both sides by 4, we get a equals 4. Since the y was the one that is not squared, that is the one we're going to change. So we labeled the directrix y, and now we're going to add 4 to the y value, which is 0. So 0 plus 4 is 4. And for the directrix, we're going to subtract 4 from the vertex. 0 minus 4 is -4. Because we changed the y, we don't change the x. So I just put the -5 in there. Let's start graphing. The vertex is at -5, 0. A is 4, and it's on the y's. So up 4, down 4. In this case, the focus is 4 above the vertex, and the directrix is 4 below, so I mark them. Now I graph the parabola. It goes through the vertex and is pushed away from the directrix, curved around the focus. Problem 3, we have two things that are squared, so it could be a hyperbola, except it's being added, not subtracted. So it could either be an ellipse or a circle, but the bottoms of the fractions are two different numbers, so it has to be an ellipse. Since it's an ellipse, we will ignore all the other boxes on the problem. We find the center by changing the values of what's next to the x and what's next to the y, -5, -1. Next, we will find c. Since we are adding them together in problem 3, that means we're going to subtract the denominators to find out what c is. 16 minus 4 equals 12, so it's the square root of 12. You might be tempted to do 4 minus 16 and get -12, but you're always supposed to subtract the bigger number from the smaller number. Since 16 is bigger than 4, we're going to be manipulating the x, not the y, so I will make no changes to the y in the foci. So I just bring down the -1s. So the x's will change, -5 plus the square root of 12 and -5 minus the square root of 12. Now let's graph. The center is at -5, -1. The denominator of x is 16. The square root of 16 is 4, so we're going to go 4 to the left and 4 to the right. The denominator for the y is 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so we're going to go 2 up and 2 down. We draw the ellipse through the extremes. To find the foci, we look at the square root of 12. 12 happens to be bigger than 9, but smaller than 16, which means it's going to be between 3 and 4 when we take the square roots. So I put the foci between 3 and 4 on the left and the right-hand sides. Problem 4, both the x's and y's are squared, but the denominators are the same. That means this is going to be a circle. Since it's a circle, we're only going to answer the questions in the circle box. The center of the circle are the numbers next to the x and the y. So it says +7, so x is -7, and it says -1, which means the y is 1. I'm going to get rid of the 4's in the denominators by multiplying both sides by 4. Which now means it's, instead of being equal to 9, it's going to be equal to 36. Square root of 36 is 6. Now I can start graphing with my center at -7, 1. With a radius of 6, I'm going to go 6 in all 4 directions. And then I just draw the circle. There'll be no foci to worry on this one because the foci happen to actually be the center of the circle.